Okay, so as we work into MIDI, the first thing we're going to do right now is create a software instrument track. Okay? Now, software instrument track is a MIDI track with a synthesizer built in on it. And a MIDI track does not record audio. A MIDI track only has on it the start and stop point of the note, the duration, no, start and stop point, how hard that note was hit, oh, and the actual note, the pitch itself. Okay, so it's say, I played a C at this time and held it for this long and then let go. Okay, there's a couple other things MIDI might record, but mainly that's it. And then you have to send that information to a synthesizer to produce the sound. And it used to be that synthesizer was outside of the computer. Now it's inside the computer, so we don't have to be hooking up these external synthesizers. And the reason for that was back in the day you couldn't you couldn't record audio on a computer, or much less have a synthesizer on it. So you needed to break it up like this. It also makes it so you can change the sound. You can record the performance data, which is what that is, and then say, you know, I don't want it to sound like a clarinet anymore. Now I want it to sound like a French horn. And you change the patch on the synthesizer. You have the same performance with a different sound. Okay. So we're going to create 4 software instruments and track in Logic and label them lead, accompaniment, bass, and rhythm. So I'm going to show you how to do that, or you can start doing it. And I'd like you just to create a new session. I guess I'll save my old one as untitled. Sure. Okay. Create a new session right here. Click Software Instrument. Make sure the instrument is the default patch right here. And then 4 of them. Hit Create. Go ahead and close this piano and close the inspectors on the left, and then label them lead, accompaniment, bass, rhythm. And put your blue flags up when you're ready. Our next step is we're going to create a region on each track. Now, when we created regions before using audio, we would just drag over the audio loop, right? But we don't want to use loops that have been pre-recorded. We want to make our own loops. So to do that, what you're going to want to do is go up here to the Tools menu, to the second one, and instead of picking scissors, which we have traditionally done, go ahead and pick the pencil tool. And when you hold down the Command key, you'll see that you get a pencil. Nice, pretty pencil. Okay. And when you get that, you can click right next to measure 1, and it'll give you a 1-bar loop or region. Grab the bottom right corner of that and drag it out to the start of measure 5, and you'll have your 4-bar region. And I'm going to do the same thing on the accompaniment, bass, and rhythm. And then I'm going to go ahead and loop those 4 bars right there. And when you're there, will you please put up your yellow flag? And I'll know you're there. Our next step is that we're going to choose a key for our song. Some of us know what that means. Many of us don't. But what it'll be is the home base for your song, the notes you want it to start with. By default, it's going to start in the key of C. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a key that we're all going to do together. So does anyone want to pick a key from those keys that you see there?
C major.
Let's not do C major. Let's do something besides C major. D minor. That's the first one I heard. We're going to D minor right here. Okay, which is actually a very good key. We'll talk about why later, why these are some good keys right here. Okay. So come back over here, and right here at the top, pick D minor, right here. Okay. So you change your key right up here in the transport window. When you got that done, take down all of your flags. Okay, the next step we want to do after we've picked our key is we want to create a chord progression. Sounds easy enough, right? Not necessarily so. Does anyone remember what a chord is? More than one note played at the same time, exactly. Some places will define it as 3 notes. We're going to define it as just more than one, although we're going to use 3 notes for today. I'm just going to pause this real quick because I have to get some water. Okay, a little pause there, but now we're back to building our chord progression. Okay, we want to pick 2, 3, or 4 chords to have over our 4 bars that we're going to loop through. Okay, for today, we're going to pick 1 chord per bar for 4 bars, which will give us 4 chords. Okay, but you could have You could play a chord for the first 2 bars and a chord for the second 2 bars, and you'd only have 2 chords. Or you could play a chord for the first bar and the second bar, and then a different chord for the third and the fourth. You could have 3. Okay, 3 is pretty common. 4 is the most common right now. It's really happening in music a lot right now, these 4 chords. So we need to start with our first chord, more than one note at a time, and our first chord should be the same as the key. So what was our key? Do we remember? We were in D minor, so our first chord is going to start with what note? D. And D is called the root, okay, of the chord. How do we do this? Well, if you go into the course here, you'll see this image of keyboard pitches. Okay? I would suggest maybe that you open that and have that on the computer. You should also probably have by you a piece of paper or a note pad on the computer that you could just write down the chords in the way that I'm going to do right here. Okay? So to pick a chord, I need to find my first note, which we've done, and I will start with the note D. We've picked a D. Okay? To find other notes that will work well with it, it's pretty easy. You just go every other white note for right now. Every other note. So if D was the first one, and I wanted to skip the next white note and go to the third one, what would that be? F. Make sense? F. And what would the next one be? A. This is 1, 3, and 5, for those of you who know the music theory. Or just every other white note. Okay? And we're going to bring over, sorry, I just kind of went off the screen, my little, come here, Hugh, there you are. No. And what I would like you to write on your piece of paper are those 3 letters. A, F, D. It's DFA written from bottom to top. Okay? You'll be using this a lot. You should have that somewhere where you can be looking at it. So when we go back over here and work in the editor, you can see your notes. Why is it? Because there's no real easy way in Logic to see what notes you're hitting, what notes are being played. It's kind of tricky. So you're going to want this reference here beside you. Okay? So our first chord is a DFA. What should our second chord be? Anyone want to pick? You can pick, and here's the rules on this. You can pick any chord from white notes as long as it doesn't start with B. Okay? So you're going to pick C. So we come over here and we say C. So C is the root. What's the third above that? Or the second note would be E, every other note, right? And the next one would be G. Go ahead and then on your piece of paper you will write those 3 there. That's our second chord. So you should have on your piece of paper AF, DFA, CEG. And you, oddly enough, read those from bottom to top. At least in the way we're doing it right now. And that's because we want to know what the root note is. We want to know that the root is the D. We want to know that the root is the C. In fact, I can probably make it bold so you can see that. Who wants to pick the next chord? G? Okay, so we're going to start with the G. So we go G. What's the next note going to be in the chord? Every other note. So we're going to go to B. And the next note? D. G, B, D. Go ahead and write those out. I would suggest that you always do this until you're really, really comfortable working with chords.
Is there a reason why you position it like that, or like write it upside down?
Because we want to be able to see the root.
Oh, okay,
so we have the root on the bottom.
Got it.
The chord is built off of the C, off the G, or off the D at the beginning, right? All right, and now we need a third chord. Or fourth chord. Someone else. A. A is a beautiful one. Okay. So I'm going to go A, and I skip every other note. Is going to be A. What's the next one? C. E. Okay. Wonk. We now have our chord progression. DFA, CEG, GBD, ACE. Do we need more time before I go on? Okay. Next step. Let's start to draw in some of those notes. Okay, we've picked them, now we have to draw them in. Okay, we're going to start by working on the accompaniment part. We're going to come right over here to Logic. In fact, I can close this window down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to double click on the accompaniment. Make sure the accompaniment is highlighted, and you'll see when you double click, it opens the editor window down below. And I'm going to grab the bar and drag it up. If you click on the lead, now I'm looking at the lead down below. So make sure you have the accompaniment region, not the track, the actual region selected. See, I'm looking at lead now, even though the track is highlighted. Doesn't matter what track's highlighted. It's the region editor down below that I'm looking at. And we need more time. Okay. Now I'm going to insert pads for the accompaniment in the range between C2 and C3, right here. What does that mean? Well, the range is over here on the left. If you click on these piano notes, you can actually hear the pitches. Okay? And you want to be, so you're looking at the ones between C2 and C3. So you kind of want those in the middle of your screen, somewhere in that range. Okay? And then I'm going to pick notes that are going to fit on it from my chord progression. So in my first measure, what are the 3 notes that I'm going to want to put in there? D, an F, and an A. All right, let me go find a D. Well, what do? Well, they don't make it easy for you. Darn Logic. They don't write the letters on the notes. Here they are. I had to go find this, create this little picture for you because Logic wouldn't do it. I'm not sure why. They don't just put a D right there. Anyway, that's your D, right? That's your D. I'm going to draw a note by doing the same thing. I'm going to click the pencil tool right here. I'm going to hold down the command key, and I'm going to get that note. Oops, I missed. That's okay. I can click and drag it just like we did with loops. Drag it down to D, and I'm going to make it the whole measure long, a whole note long. And then I can hold down the Option key and drag it and get the F. I'm not dragging very well today. And the A. And it should sound like this. Get to that point and put a flag up on your computer, please, and then we'll pause again. So once you finish putting in your first chord, you're going to just put in the next 3 chords that we put in, 1 per bar, right? So again, I can just hold down the Option key and drag that, and I know I'm going to want to go to a C. I'm just going to drag that and go to the C here, and I'm going to C, E, G. Okay? I think I'm going to be able to drag this over a little bit, get a little more real estate here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the G, B, D. Okay, G, B, D. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here and get the last one, which is an A, C, E. This is a pretty rough chord progression, actually. Once you have that completed, just lower your flags. The next thing we want to do is we want to simplify the voice leading in the accompaniment part. Okay? Each one of these chords has 3 voices in it. It has a high, mid, and low voice in it. Okay? Well, these voices are extremely lazy. They don't want to move around. Why? If you start moving around your accompaniment a lot and it gets up too high, it's going to interfere with your lead sound. If it comes down too low, it's going to interfere with your bass sound. If your accompaniment starts jumping around a lot, it's going to take attention away from your other parts. You want your accompaniment to kind of flush into the background. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it's not an accompaniment part. It becomes a lead part. It becomes more interesting. So we want to assume that this is like, does anyone know the game Frogger? Yeah. I actually have the picture of Frogger up here. Okay. I had it up. Oh. The frog's got to get across this water here, okay, by jumping on these logs. And he can't just go jumping from this log to here. He can only go like straight up and down. So we need to make sure that we find a path that's as easy for him to get across the water. And these logs, like he needs to be able to go on this turtle here, this log here, onto this turtle, that log, and he can jump through. Okay? He's not going to try to go from this log way over to this log, way over to this turtle, and then jump back to this log. Okay? Our logs are our chords. They're the only places the frog can land. The frog can't land right here on a C on this chord. It would, well, actually you can, whoops. You couldn't land on a B on this chord because there's no B in that chord. There's no B in our second chord. No B. The frog would die. That make sense? So we want to keep our frog alive by giving him the easiest route. So consider each one of your voices a frog. All right? This frog needs to get from this A across to the next nearest note. And you'll see that we're having him move down one note, one white note from this note here, oops, from this A down to this G. That's not bad. In fact, all these frogs are pretty happy. They just have to move down one. But what happens here?
Goes up an octave.
Everybody jumps around. You see that? This bottom frog has to jump all the way up here, this one all the way up here, this one all the way up here. It's ridiculous. Nobody's happy. Nobody's happy at all. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this note right here, and this is a D, and I'm going to see if I can't find a D down lower. Well, I can. If I go down here, there's a D right there. I can take this D and just drag it an octave lower. Now the frogs aren't jumping up as high, are they? In fact, if I look at this one and I can see, wait, those are the same note even, I don't even need my frog to jump that far. I could pull this frog down here that is now on a B, and I can pull it all the way down to this B here. Now look at my frogs. They're all pretty happy. They're going smoothly down. You see that? But there's a slight problem. What happens when they get to the end of the loop? What do they have to do? They all have to jump back up. Okay? So we've still got a major leap section in here. So now I'm going to try to get this A out of the basement or up here. Now I've got a smoother transition. You see that? All of them move up here, and then only these bottom two move up to get back to the beginning. I've got smooth voices going across. Each voice moves very little. It sounds like this. Hear it? Kind of cool, right? See if you can do that and put your flags up when you've got your voices smoothed out. And just so you know, there's more than one way to do it. I could have had this one up another octave. I could have gone up here to this B, and I could have brought this one up here to this C. I don't know, Stephen, if this is kind of getting at what you were talking about. But now it's the same chords, just a little bit higher. Instead of going down, there it goes up. My goal is to try to keep it between C2 and C3, so I might actually end up with this as my progression. So between C2, C3, and each voice moving as little as possible. We can't avoid all notes moving the same direction all the time, especially when the chords are right next to each other. All the notes have to move, unfortunately. Okay, I'm going to pause it until I see flags up. So we've basically completed our accompaniment part. We're going to go back in there and dice this up. Right now they're just pads, right? They're just holding the chords down. We're going to get in and make them more exciting as we go. Now we want to move to the bass part. And we're going to basically put one note in for the bass for each chord, and that note will be the root of the chord. So what are our bass notes going to be? D, C, G, and A. And stay as close to C1 as possible. There's my 2 rules for that one. Okay. So we're going to come across now, and instead of working on the accompaniment region, we're going to scroll down a little bit here, and we're going to click on the bass region until we see bass down here. And we're going to scroll down a little bit here until we get near C1. And then we're going to pull our notes back up. We're going to go D, C, G, A. Put one note in per chord per measure. D, and stay D, close to the measure 1 as you can be, or to C1, sorry. D, C, whoops. Oh, geez. And you should be able to hear that. Actually, I'm going to go down. I'm going to go all the way down to this A here. And this G. I'll go down. And go ahead and put your flags down when you got that done. Okay, we've created a beautiful bass line, right? And now when you play your song, you can hear that bass line under your accompaniment part. We've been using the ideas of our music theory to align two different parts at once. And they're about an octave apart, meaning the accompaniment ones are about twice the frequency of the bass notes, and they're above it, so you can hear them as separate. Now we want to go in and we want to put in our melody part, and guess what? We're going to do about the same thing that we did with the bass for right now. We're going to get, these will get fancier as we go, but just to get that basic framework in place, we're going to start by putting just one note in per chord for the melody as well. Bless you. Now, the melody needs to be up higher, and rather than only using the root of the chord, we can use any note from the chord. And instead of trying to move to the next root, you want to move to nearby notes, similar to what we did in the accompaniment. Okay? So if we go back and we look at our chords here, what note should we start with? Let's start with something other than D. We'll start with F. Okay? So we're going to pick notes that are different. We can pick these other ones, but we're going to start with that F. Okay, I'm going to pop up here. I'm going to scroll to the top just like I did for the bass, and I'm going to click on lead. I'm going to get the lead down below, and then I'm going to scroll up here so that it's between C3 and C4. And I'm going to look for an F between C3 and C4. And lo and behold, there is one right there. And I'm going to go ahead and click that and put in that F. Okay. Now, I want to go to my next note. Interesting thing here to do. If I scroll down, I can kind of see my bass. In fact, I can jump back to the bass here. Bass and lead like to move in opposite directions. So if I look at my bass pattern here, notice how it goes down, down, back up. It was a really wise thing here to go ahead and in your melody go up, up, and back down. Does that make sense? Up, up, and back down. We're just going to go in the opposite pattern. So I'm going to scroll back up here to my melody now, click it, and I want to go up from this F into measure 2 to one of these notes. What would be a good note to go up to from an F? G, the next closest one. Okay? And once I get to that G and I want to go up again, what might I go to in this chord? Might I go up to B? And now I want to come down. Well, maybe I don't want to come down that far, right? I might come down to A, because C would be way down, right? When you're thinking melodies, you want to think how the human voice works, and we don't talk like this very often. The pitch in our voice is usually in a similar range, right? So you want to keep, kind of like the Frogger thing, the melody more smooth. Okay, melody more smooth. That will call out to you more. That'll jump out in the song more. Okay? Go ahead and build your melody, and let me know when you are up that by putting up your flag. So we're going to start out by just creating a little riff in the bass part. Okay, jump down to the bass part. So I'm going to come over and click on the bass. Okay, and I see my notes going down there. And you have to start somewhere. That's the most simple. The most simple it can be. So I want it to have a little groove to it. So I've got this. Go ahead and solo it. I don't even need to hear the press. So now I'm going into the creative space and the inner voice in my head. So I'm going to go. Like this. And make these a little more staccato here. Not quite that short. I'll put one more in there. So I made this riff that goes da 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 da, and then it's going across my chords, right? My riff is 2 bars long. My chords are only 1 bar long, so the note has to change. Does that make sense? Da 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 da. So you can do something similar. Either you could do exactly that, or try something else. Make a pattern, and just for right now, just use the notes that are in the chords, those root notes for right now. Okay. And then go ahead and put your flags down when you're ready. Now that we created a riff in the bass, we're going to skip over accompaniment and jump right up to the melody and try to develop something in the lead. And then maybe we'll come back to the accompaniment and see if we can't get the accompaniment to work around the bass. Okay? So we've got this bass sound. Now I'm going to solo my lead and bring that back in. Okay, I want you to do a couple things here. One is, a few steps. Right click on that lead, show hide colors, and let's make your lead, I don't know, we'll make your lead red. It really pops out. Right click on lead, make it red. Or some reddish color, right? Can be any one of those. Okay, I went up to the lead, I right click on it, show hide colors. And whatever color I pick is the color that region is going to be, right? See that?
It's not the top column, that's why. You have to go name and color first.
Name and color.
Yeah, name and color and then show color.
So go to name
Wait.
and color.
Because like, you know how it shows you like those top ones at the top, those are like ones you use the most.
Oh, name and color. Got it. Got it. Show hide colors. It's right here. Good question. We good? Okay, I'll get there. Give me just a minute and I'll come help you, okay? Okay. Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click the lead and the bass region and watch what happens down below here. Now I'm all zoomed in. I can see the bass and the lead because I clicked on both of them at once. Shift click, or I could rubber band. Now it'll also show the accompaniment. I just want to see the bass and the lead right now. So I'm going to shift click on those two, and I can see them together. See if you can get to that point with a different color on the two, and put your flags down when you're there. And I'm going to go help Vivian. Okay, so I'm going to look for short and long notes. And sorry, I'm going to add one more thing here. I am going to include step 9 and step 10. I might make those as one, but in addition to using chord tones, leaving the breaks, using a combination of short and long notes, looking at these anticipations and delays, I'm going to be also focused on counterpoint. I'm going to look at that bass. And when the bass is active, my melody should be less active, and when the bass is less active, the melody can be more active, or vice versa. So where I want my melody to be moving around, my bass should be kind of chilling out probably right there. Okay? Kind of chilling out. So I'm going to look at this here. And when I look at I see I've got good counterpoint. My melody's going up when my bass is going down. We built that in from the beginning. I see that my bass has more motion in 1 and 3 and less in 2 and 4. That makes me want to have more motion in 2 and 4 and less in 1 and 3 in my melody. Okay? It'll just work together well. So I'm going to come in here now, and I'm just going to start my melody a little bit late. And I think what I'll do is I'll kind of end it. Maybe I'll have like since my riff is kind of 2 bars long, maybe my melody, no, I want my melody to go all the way through. I think I'll just shorten my melody and end it early. Okay? Something in there. If I were to play that now, it'd sound like this. Now, I'm just going to do some anticipations on that. Watch if I just do this early. Half note, 8th note early. Whoops, wrong pitch. Here, it's jumping out in front of the bass now. Oh, not that one. I'm going to move that one. Heck, I'll move that one early too. We'll do the whole melody a little bit early here. Feeling it? Got a little bit of groove now. Okay? Now I'm using, so I've created my break right here in the beginning and at the end. I have added some anticipations by having the notes come in early. Now I'm going to make a combination of long and short notes. In fact, I'm going to add just a couple little notes here. Watch what happens. Whoops, I'm going to zoom in way too far. I'm going to put a short note in here, whatever. Maybe I want that, I like that, okay? So now I've used a combination of short notes. I have some anticipations coming in. I have a break. I'm going to really now focus on being simpler in the melody when the bass is moving. So I'm going to see, my bass is really moving right here. Right here I'm going to add a little bit more motion in this melody, okay? Just to counterpoint it. Look at how I'm using these off notes, right? Look how I'm going on the off beat right here. I'm gonna have to zoom in a little bit. Zoom in a little bit on the end. Get away. Short him a little bit so you can hear him. And maybe I'll do the same thing here. Chop it up a little bit on the end here where the bass is stopping, right? Maybe I could even get one more in here. I'm going to take that one out because the bass is kind of moving there. There we go. These two voices are working well together. Too much at the end there. Final thing, add non-chord tones. What does this mean? Well, it means in our game of Frogger, we've set up these logs that are chords, right? And the frog has to get across and can only step on those particular notes or those particular logs. But we're saying, you know what, there's little lily pads next to the logs that he can step a foot on real quick or off. And he's going to get over to that log. If he has to do a quick step on a lily pad in between, he can. Or he can be on the log and be like, jump back onto it really quick, okay? So we're going to use these two things called passing tones and neighboring tones, okay? This is a great way to make your song sound cheesy. There's two ways to make your song sound cheesy. Use lots of passing and neighboring tones and put it on the square notes, and you get Jingle Bells and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and those sort of sounds, okay? So we want to use these very subtly. We don't want to get too extreme here. Neighboring tone is a note in between a chord tone. So an example of a place for a neighboring tone, if I'm on this C right here, if I'm on the C right here and I've got to get down to that G, you'll notice that there are two white notes in between that I can hit on the way. I can hit on the way, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. I'm going to now, right here, just add a couple eighth notes, going down. Now, these are called passing tones. Okay, listen to what happens in the bass. go down there? Okay. It adds a little bit of motion to it. Now, unfortunately, where I just did it does not sound that great because it's interfering with the melody right there. The melody's making a big jump. So I might not want to do that in the bass. I might want to keep my bass more chill, and at that point, look at this spot in the melody where I could add a passing tone right here. Right there, I can put in that note. Let's see what happens. Here? Okay. I actually don't like this note, this is too much. So this is a passing tone. Another place that I could put, and look at this bass right here. I'm looking at this big jump in the bass, going from this A back up to the C, and I'm thinking maybe I can get some in there and not interfere. My question is it going to interfere with the accompaniment, right? That's going to be what I have to decide. Let me see if I can throw in a passing tone, a couple passing tones there. Get back up to the C, or the D, sorry, the D. And in fact, I probably will have to lose that note. It probably will be too much. I can tell just by looking. Hear that bass? And look at the counterpoint between my bass and the melody. The melody did it here, the bass is going to do it here. Okay? This note sounds too low to me right here. It's too cool. I like it. I'm going to actually move this C up here. This is a lot of how a lot of music looks right here. Okay? A lot of music looks this way. I could even cut out, just like when we're working on loops, I can reduce the accompaniment there so you can really, oops. I could shorten those accompaniment ones so you can hear the bass more, right? I'm going to let it pop out. Do you hear that? Popped out. I'm going to do the same here so you can hear the melody a little better. Just shorten that accompaniment. Hear that? Now you can hear that melody more clearly because I took the accompaniment out there for a second, right? Right here, you'll hear that. Or maybe that's too much. Maybe I don't want that, right? So those are passing tones. They're going between chord tones. They're transition tones. A neighboring tone is one right next to a chord tone. And a neighboring tone would be if I had, say, 3 chord tones next to each other and wanted to play a note next to it. Perfect spot for it, right here. And I could move this down now to the next white note, and it'll go down to a C here, and I could do the same thing here. It'll sound pretty good here. Oh, I see what's going on. That's where my off beat. So you hear that neighboring tone? They add just a little bit more flavor into it, right? It's adding a little bit of flavor. Dun, dun, dun. I could do a neighboring right here. Neighboring tone to this one. Because I had 3 notes in a row. Got it? You want to be careful. If I keep adding these neighboring tones, eventually it'll sound like Jingle Bells. It'll sound real cheesy. We like kind of more a rhythmic pulse or a rhythmic assertion on the chord tones. That's what we're more used to hearing.